Hi, welcome to episode 146 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. I'm Laura, also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where I put every episode and show notes. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hello, welcome. It is Sunday, July 23rd, and we just got back from a weekend of family reunioning. We went over to Illinois to see my husband's family, and actually both sides of his family met up. So we spent a couple hours with his dad's side of the family, and then spent the rest of the day with his mom's side of the family. And it was a lot of family, and a lot of food, and a lot of fun. And then we drove home. It's about a 6-hour drive, so we drove back today. It is about 3 o'clock now, and I thought I would dash off a short podcast before I start groceries and laundry, and really, I just want to change and sit around the house and veg for a little bit. It has been incredibly hot here. The last week or so, we have easily been up to 100, and it's been super humid. And I know we drove out on Friday, and all on Friday, I kept telling my husband, I must be like the Wicked Witch of the West, because I felt like I was melting. I felt like all I did that day was sweat. So badly that I took 2 showers that day, and I wouldn't even go to bed before I took a shower, because it was so hot and humid. And then actually yesterday was maybe 5 to 7 degrees cooler. And so it actually was a better day, and I managed to sit inside in the air conditioning and not do too badly. And then today we drove home. There was a storm last night, so I thought it might be a little bit cooler today, and it was this morning. It was in the 70s this morning, which was really nice. But now it's back up close in the mid to high 90s, so it's just been kind of an exhausting weekend. But I did have 2 6-hour car trips, so I got lots done. My husband mostly drives. I drove the last hour or so home, but in general he drives and I knit, which works out perfectly. So, quickly today, I didn't make myself hot tea, even though it looks like hot tea. I am using a tea bag that I got from a viewer. It's Hawaiian Natural Tea, Passion Fruit Orange, and the package says it is organic green tea, organic black tea, and 100% natural flavoring. And what I did is I just stuck the tea bag in and filled my mug up with ice water. And it's not really an iced tea, but it does give the water kind of some subtle flavoring of the tea, and that was really all I was looking for, because like I said, it is super hot. So this is orange passion fruit water. And I really, sometimes I do this and I just let the tea bag sit in there for a while, and it's sort of cold brews, not really. I never really get the full effect, but I like to do it also with like lemon tea bags or mint tea bags, because it just flavors the water a little bit, and it's delicious in the summer. So that is what I'm drinking today. Not a real good representative of the tea, but like I said, we just got home and I couldn't face a hot cup of tea on a 100-degree day. So let's talk about the things that I knit. First finish is a pair of socks. I had the first sock done when I talked to you last week or 2 weeks ago. These are Knit Picks Felici, which is their self-striping. It is a superwash merino nylon. I think it's 75/25. And the colorway is Fanciful. I also used Knit Picks Stroll for the cuffs and heels. I did not do that with the toes. And that is Stroll in navy, even though it looks black. And I have really small feet. My feet are size 6.5. And with the extra for the cuff and the heels, I actually got both of these socks out of one ball of the Felici, which I believe is around 220 yards or something around that. And I was super, super close. One of the toes has, as you can see, one of the toes has a few more rounds than the other one. I ran out just a little bit short, but otherwise I did fine. So I have the other skein of this, which I hope I will turn into socks for Ms. Roxy. And I know it's kind of crazy that I can get my socks out of one ball. They're not super tall socks, but they are full-size socks for me. So that is what I've got. That is, that will be another pair for Sock It to Summer and one that I had on the needles. I do have a second sock that I need to do for my After the Storm socks. So I suppose that I will work on this week. So that is that one. Last week I showed you a yarn for review that I need to knit, and I realized when I went to go grab my needles to start knitting it, that they were actually in another hat that I had started and not finished. So I decided I'd better finish that hat first. So I did, and it is just a plain and simple hat. The bottom is Dream in Color Classy in some summer sky, I think, or no, that used to be the blue color, but it's in, I can't remember the colorway. I used it to knit a shrug not that long ago. This is almost it. I just have just a very little bit left, and that will be a pom-pom for the top. And then the rest of it is Woolmize DK in the Moses colorway. So it is just a plain and simple hat, and I think I will give this one to my sister for Miles. It might be too big for him this year, but if not, it will last until next year, I'm sure. And so I'm going to put a pom-pom on that and call it done. So that is the second one this week, and then I just started to cast on in the car. I have the first couple rows of ribbing done on the hat, and this is the Shepherd's Lamb. It is the Rambouillet indigo dyed, and so I will do a full review of this next week because I'm sure this hat will crank out pretty fast. So that is one of my whips. And then the other whip, the one I wanted to get a lot of work done on, I did. It's not quite finished. I still need to do the button bands. But everything else is done and all the ends are woven in. So really the button bands are it. And I think I can probably crank it out tonight. And this is Roxy's Playful Stripes cardigan. It is badly in need of a blocking, particularly around the yoke. But this is what I have done. It was striping. It is... the yarn is Cascade Superwash Sport, and the blue color is Alaskan Sky, and then the other color, it's very hard for you to see, I'll show it to you in the ball. It is a Sanguine Griffin. It is called the Very Quiet Cricket, and it is blues and pinks and magentas and purples, very muted, kind of dark. And then I got some dark purple buttons to go on it. So like I said, I am done, except it needs a really good blocking, and it needs some button bands. So that is what I will work on tonight, and hopefully block and photo in the next couple days. That is my Camp Loopy 2. That is for the Loopy U, and it is my second project for the summer. The requirements for this one were a pattern published before 2014, and that is the Playful Stripes cardigan by Alana Dakos, who is Never Not Knitting, and then 600 yards of yarn, and I used just right around 600 yards, or close to 600 yards of the blue, and I'm going to break into one final skein to work on the button bands, and then I don't know how much of the bugga that I used. I'll have to weigh the cake, because I know what I started with. So that is a cute sweater for Roxy. I will show it to you finished next week, and that is for her birthday in October. And I already knit Miles' sweater. It still needs to be ends woven in and blocked and buttons, but that is sweaters for the kids, and then I need to go back and do a little bit more winter gear. I need to do some mittens for Miles, and at least one more hat and mittens for Roxy, and possibly 2 hats. So I'm working on those just to kind of get those done, so I don't have October and November staring me down where I need to do tons of work right then. But that was my knitting weekend. I was pretty impressed. The sweater was mostly car knitting. The second sock I totally did I was already halfway done when we left, and so I did the other half sitting at the second family reunion yesterday. I just parked myself in a corner with a fan, and people came and went, and I sat and knit, and it was perfect. And then the hat I kind of did in the evenings, and finished it on the way home today. So that is what's on and off my needles. Let's talk about the spins. Tour de Fleece is basically over today. I have not watched the final stage yet, and actually I did not I did go look at the results after Friday after we drove, but I didn't look after the time trial or today, so I'll probably watch that this evening. I did not take my wheel with me when we went, so my last spin actually was completed on, technically I plied, and then I wound off and washed it on Wednesday night. And I started a small spin on Thursday. I didn't bring it with me. It's not that exciting. If you've been watching for a while, you know I was spinning that Corriedale Cross in the smoke colorway for my Hap shawl. I had spun up 12 of the 16 ounces. 12 of the 16? Yeah, 12 of the 16 ounces, and I had plied 8 of them together. And so I have 4 ounces that's been sitting on a bobbin, I believe possibly since the last Tour de Fleece. We won't talk about that. And I started the last 4 ounces the other day, and my plan is to maybe work on that this week and get that plied up and off my plate. But that won't count as a Tour de Fleece spin, because even if I spin a little bit of it during the tour, it's probably only like an ounce, ounce and a half during the tour, and I won't ply until next week. So I am calling myself done with the tour. The 4th spin that I showed you last week, I believe it was still on the bobbin. I'm not sure that I had plied it last week when we talked, or maybe I had just plied it and I hadn't washed it yet. That is this beautiful skein called Out of the Blue, and it is all the blues from the bat that I spun. I don't think the camera does it justice here. I did take pictures and throw this one up in the shop. It is a squishy 8-ounce skein, probably Sport 2 DK weight, and it was 668 yards, so nice yardage. It would be great as a shawl or as the yoke of a sweater. It is kind of medium soft. Some of the wools that were in it were merinos, so they were super soft, and then some of them were more medium to long, like Romney and Corriedale. And so it came out kind of middle of the road. It is like not super soft, but it's not itchy either. And it's pretty soft and pliable. I wouldn't call it like merino or cashmere like up against your neck. So that is the blues skein, and like I said, that's in my shop. That was 8 ounces. And then my final spin for the tour was a beautiful skein of Hello Yarn. This was Falkland, which is one of my favorite fibers to spin. It was called like Berries on a Bush, and it had oranges and reds and some kind of dark purpley blue teals. It totally reminds me of summer fruits. It is like peaches and nectarines and apricots and plums with almost a little blue in the plum. I don't know how much you can see that. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is pretty soft, but I think it also, Falkland is a longer wool, so I think it would give good stitch definition. This would make excellent socks. It is not superwash, but it would just be a fun skein. And you know what? I forgot to calculate how many yards it is. I'm gonna say it's a heavy fingering to sport weight, and I'm not gonna hazard a guess. It's probably between 3 and 350 if I had to guess. As I said, I'm not going to hazard a guess, and then I went ahead and guessed. It's probably between 3 and 350. I will be taking glamour shots and putting this one up in the shop tonight. It was not dry before I left, which is why I did not do that sooner. So that is the 5th and final skein of my tour. That means I spun about 1.5 pounds this tour. I think it's slightly over because a lot of my 4-ounce braids, or a lot of my braids were like 4.1 ounces. So I think I'm just a little over 1.5 pounds for this tour, which is down from where I have been, but I am not terribly upset with myself because I feel like I spun as much as I could. We had company, we went away, and some nights my back just hurt and I couldn't sit at the spinning wheel any longer. So I think I spun what I could, and I'm pleased with my results. And like I said, if I finish off that last skein this week, I will have spun 2 pounds this month, which is 1 pound more than I normally spin in a month. So I will take it, and hopefully that will get me to my 13 pounds this year. Basically, my goal for the year is a braid a week, 52 weeks, about 4 ounces a week. It works out to about 13 pounds a year. So that is usually my sort of base level goal. Sometimes I spin more, sometimes I spin less. It allows me to do things like Tour de Fleece and spin extra, and then also to go on vacation and not take the wheel with me and not worry about it. And I would say half to 2/3 of my spins end up in my shop. It depends on the year and what projects I have in mind, how many. So that was a pretty good tour for me. I'll put together some finished stats. There'll be a post on my blog. For those of you who participated along with us in the group, thank you for joining us. Corner of Knit and Tea did have a team this year, and it was kind of a laid-back team. I awarded a few prizes. It was my philosophy on Tour de Fleece is always spin whatever you want, however much you want. I enjoy having a few weeks where I focus on nothing but spinning, and I love watching the bike race. And it is Tour de Fleece and Tour de France are kind of a highlight of my summer. But I understand that's not everyone's cup of tea, and I certainly do not have a competitive team. You are only competing against the goals that you set out for yourself. So I want to say we had probably 20-ish people who participated this year, which was great. And I am awaiting final photos. I did open a thread. If you spun with our team at all this year, you are welcome to post a finished photo of your final spins. I believe I said I would leave that thread open until tomorrow night, midnight Central Standard Time. I will lock that thread and I will award some final prizes. So that is sort of that spin along winding down, and I don't know if I'll do another knit along in the fall or not. As you know, current knit alongs that I'm working on, I'm still working on Socket to Summer, which I believe runs till August 31st. I am working on Stash Dash. I don't know if I'm going to make 10,000 meters this year. Let's see. Socket to Summer is hosted by Amanda, who is wit on Ravelry, so nitpicky on other social media, and she hosts Not a Podcast. She is also the owner of the Lammy Toe Shop. She does Socket to Summer every year. And you can enter every finished pair of socks that you complete this summer as long as they are a minimum of 50 grams. You have to use a 50-gram ball. They can be child socks or adult socks, just a minimum of a 50-gram ball, or 50 grams of sock yarn in them. Stash Dash is hosted by the Knit Girls. That's Leslie and Lala, and they have a podcast and a group on Ravelry. And their Stash Dash is to finish up unfinished objects over the summer and knit and spin like the wind. And they have a variety of yardage categories. Actually, technically, I don't think I've entered myself the last couple of years, but what I do is I usually track my yardage, or meterage for Stash Dash. And most summers I come very close to or hit 10,000 meters of stuff during the summer, and that counts all my yardage spun and all my yardage knit. And last I checked, I'm between 6,500 and 7,000 meters, and that doesn't include actually any of the, well, it included the big skein of blue, but it doesn't include any of the other projects I showed you here today. So I probably have 250 on the socks, 100 on the hat, probably 300 something on the skein of yarn. So that's probably another 500 to 600 meters. And then the sweater for Roxy is probably going to take about 800 yards. So a little bit less in terms of meterage. But so that will be good to add to it. Stash Dash only goes until Laura goes back to school. So I believe it's around August 15th this year. So I'm not sure I can crank out another 2,500 yards of stuff in the next 15 days, but we shall see. So that's my progress on knit-alongs. Those are going on over the summer. And then come fall, I'm sort of waiting. If you know me and have been following the podcast, every year sometime in August or early September, I get bitten by the sweater bug, and I have a million sweaters that I want to knit. I actually selected a sweater project for me for the next Camp Loopy, which will start on August 1st, which is after the next podcast. So I will show you what I will be working on in the next podcast. And I will also pick up this week, hopefully, my Hitofude, which is a beautiful lacy cardigan that I started at the end of last month when I didn't have enough to do before the project started for this month. So if I finish Roxy's sweater tonight, I will have the hat I need to knit, the second sock, and I'll probably work on Hitofude for the next week. And then I will start my sweater for Camp Loopy for August. And truthfully, I hope to finish up the socks, the hat, and both sweaters if I can by the end of August. And actually, technically, if I did that, then I probably would make my my stash dash goal. And then come September and October, I usually get involved in knitting for the kids. I have a little bit more to do for that and some sweaters. And then November is Nanny Swamo, which is National Knit a Sweater Month. So that is all the fun that is coming up. But right now it is still really hot, and I only want to knit when we're inside in air conditioning. So, I did not bring my next spin to show you. Like I said, I will probably try and finish that, finish the Corriedale Cross up this week. But honestly, I may not touch the wheel this week. Usually, the week after Tour de Fleece concludes, I step away from the wheel for a week and get back into knitting. So that will probably be my focus this week. And I hope I will have plenty to show you and talk about at next week's podcast. So thank you for joining me today. I know this one was a little short, although I talked for almost 20 minutes, so that's a little bit longer than I thought it would be. But I appreciate you joining me. I just wanted to catch up with you, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!